Here we are in October, objectively the scariest, spookiest, and creepiest month of the year. So of course we're gonna have to discuss some of the more disturbing, upsetting, and downright horrifying supervillains out there. To become a supervillain, one usually has to exhibit some sort of antisocial tendency. Where do fears come from anyways? From things you're unfamiliar with, things that are dangerous to you, things that can't be explained. Villains always act in ways that creep us out because they don't often align with our morals. Or maybe when they do, they go about achieving their goals in repulsive and repugnant ways. Regardless, it shouldn't be a big surprise that a whole bunch of bad guys are actually super creepy too. Hello everyone and welcome back to Top 10 Nerd. I'm your host for the day, Keegan Hughes, and today we're going to be discussing the top 10 creepiest super villains. If villains make you happy, make sure to check out our top 10 supervillain videos playlist right over here. Wicked, let's get started. Coming in at number 10, we've got ZEBEDIAH KILLGRAVE. There are just so many reasons this sociopath is considered extra creepy. First of all, his skin has been saturated with experimental nerve gas. This chemical compound has caused his body to become purple, giving him an especially sinister look. Something about the color purple seems to really freak people out. Sells horror novels too. Of course, just being purple isn't enough to land on a list of the creepiest villains of all time. No, KILLGRAVE has a whole bunch of awful tendencies that really put him above the rest. The very same nerve gas accident also altered his body chemistry, bestowing upon him some fascinating powers. This violent villain is able to control people's minds using pheromones, leading to some horrible situations. Over time, he learned to use his mind control powers to meet his own needs and became quite cruel and merciless. As one might expect, he makes a lot of folks act way out of character in order to please him. The most famous victim has to be Jessica Jones, who he kept as a sex slave for months on end. Jessica Jones was one of many poor people who the Purple Man forced to do gross things against their will. And if that isn't creepy, I don't know what is. Coming in at number 9, we've got Solomon Grundy. Zombies are creepy, especially when they have human intelligence and seem to keep resurrecting. Solomon Grundy checks all sorts of boxes, from living in sewers to pulling his own limbs off during combat. Imagine the smell too. Grundy has taken on many different forms and caused all sorts of different problems, but you can be sure whatever iteration he shows up as is going to be either scary or nasty. Pallid flesh, drippy liquids, and a need to be as malicious and aggressive as possible. All these things add up to a truly creepy villain. Coming in at number 8, we've got Victor Zsasz. Serial killers are creepy. They've captured the imagination of the nation for ages now, and Victor is no exception. This Batman nemesis is a lanky lunatic who carves a mark into his body for every person he kills. There are marks covering his entire body at this point, so take that as you will. He was once the son of a wealthy couple, but after they died in a boating accident, he became addicted to gambling. Betting everything, he squandered his wealth away and realized that his life was totally devoid of meaning. Before he could kill himself, a homeless man menaced him with a knife, and in this person's eyes, Victor saw emptiness. He took this as a sign that his life was nothing. He and everyone else on Earth were being controlled by forces beyond comprehension. So now he goes around and helps people shuffle off their mortal coils, also known as murders people. A person who's lost all hope for humanity is a dangerous one indeed, especially when they enjoy slitting throats as much as Victor. Coming in at number 7, we've got MUSE. Imagine if Banksy was a bloodthirsty maniac, then add in crazy combat skills and general imperceptibility. Now imagine all these traits packed up into a disgusting, pale, shrivel-faced lad. Now that's the recipe for MUSE. A pained artist who uses human blood to create gigantic murals. He loves to create spectacles. And by spectacles, I mean grotesque defilements of the human form. He creates all sorts of bloody art, and then while politicians attempt to prevent access, he kidnaps the judge. He gouges out Blind Spot's eyes. He even breaks all of his fingers, just himself, when he realizes Daredevil wants the horrifying art to stop. And then when he's taken to prison, his creepy creations don't stop. He breaks out, slaughtering some guards in the process, and begins making pro-vigilante pieces adorned with the bodies of cops. Brutal. Coming in at number 6, we've got Professor Pig. Anyone in a pig mask is creepy in my books, but Professor Pig takes it to a whole new level. He's obsessed with perfecting the human form, and of course his idea of perfect is totally warped. To make someone into his ideal person, he replaces their faces with horrible doll faces. Making their form perfect isn't enough though, and he also tends to lobotomize them. Then they become weird, brainless, hypnotizable zombie people. Holy smokes. It almost feels like a Richard Traeger situation for those of you familiar with Outlast. A skilled surgeon absolutely defiling the human form in search of a twisted view of perfection. And he's just totally hideous, with or without the mask. That's a face not even a mother could love, which may have something to do with his insane behavior. Coming in at number 5, we've got the Brood. Oh man, every universe has to have a crazy conqueror race like this. Just a species of constantly consuming creatures who only exist to reproduce and drain planets dry of all their resources. The Brood has been around for thousands of years and have nests on planets across the universe. If they were mindless, it would be one thing, but the Brood enjoy causing pain and suffering. They live for the terror that their infection inspires in hosts. It's like if xenomorphs were even more prolific and loved to cause as much horror as possible. These things are bad news. They'll consume and consume until nothing is left. Coming in at number 4, we've got Nightmare. What's creepier than a Fear Lord? This entity reigned over the nightmare realm within the dream dimension. This demon is able to snag a person's astral form while they're asleep and bring it into his nightmare realm. And being somewhere like that, not fun. He's kind of like a super version of Freddy Krueger. Nightmare will always exist as long as there are beings that dream. Even if he is defeated, he can never be truly destroyed. Watch out for him tonight. Coming in at number 3, we've got Scarecrow. Now how can you do a creepy supervillain list and not include Scarecrow? This ex-professor of psychology uses all sorts of experimental substances to delve deep into the fears of his foes. He regularly makes folks confront their worst fears, usually in the form of the world's worst trip. The scariest part? He doesn't do it for wealth or power. He does it because he wants to see what'll happen. It's an experiment to him. He just wants more data to analyze. At least that's what he started out doing. After a while, he realized that he really likes scaring people to death and started doing it to satisfy his own sadistic urges. Oh boy. Coming in at number 2, we've got Carnage. Some folks say that Venom is really scary, but those folks might have forgotten about Carnage. When Eddie Brock rotted in prison, the Venom symbiote came looking for him. After rebonding with Brock, it left behind his offspring. Unfortunately, it decided it would bond with a psychotic murderer named Cletus Cassidy. This new symbiotic creature took on a red and black form and went on a ridiculously long killing spree. Carnage is exceptionally bloodthirsty and seems to just want to go out and kill. Cletus was only the beginning too. This thing has also been magically altered, bonded with Norman Osborn, and became totally animalistic with power. All in all, Carnage is a villain you don't really want to run into at any time. And finally at number 1, we've got PARALLAX. Also known as the embodiment of fear itself, PARALLAX exists to cause horror all across the universe. It has existed since the dawn of time and has a history of causing whole civilizations to destroy themselves. The fear and anxiety this fiend can induce literally rips apart societies. PARALLAX is so good at causing fear, it can easily frighten folks like Superman. A being of pure energy, it has no physical form and will try to change into whatever will scare its target the most. Oh my goodness. And it's yellow in the Green Lantern universe. Well, are you scared yet? Has the October mood flowed through you? Do these supervillains remind you of your deepest fears? What did you think of the list? Do you agree with my selections? What supervillain do you think is the scariest of all time? Make sure you let me know down in the comments. Speaking of comments, let's take a look at some of your more impervious ones from the top 10 powerful villains with terrible weaknesses. Max Supreme says Joker's weakness, being human, so being vulnerable to things like knives and guns. You don't say. Well, I didn't say he had like a particularly interesting weakness, I said he had a terrible one. Dimitri Doyle says really? Cigarettes? Waste of a slot on the list. So you're fine with kids everywhere just assuming smoking is okay because the Penguin does it and can still fight Batman? Wow. Jay Lee says this list sure be a list. That's no argument. They have straight 10 entries in numerical order, served up hot and fresh. Falcon Wing says, fun fact, Kingpin is apparently a vegan. He keeps up that physique without meat. Impressive. Those are some Anthony Fantano gains right there. And STG4 the Glitchhog says, top 10 Hulk ripoffs. Do you mean characters that take obvious inspiration from the Hulk, or top 10 times that the Hulk ripped pieces off of things? Because that could go either way. And that's all the time we have for today. Before I take a quick dip in a vat of acid, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe for more spooky supers. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. They've captured the imagination of the nation. Well, imagination of the nation. They've captured the imagination of the nation for. There are marks covering his entire body at the. While Eddie Brock rotted in prison, the Venom symbiote. Oh my god. When Eddie Brock rotted in prison, the Venom symbiote came looking for him. Oh my god. How do I say that word?
I always hear both. I never know. Everyone says it both.
I know. Symbiote. Symbiote? It sounds weird now that I'm saying it out loud. I'm just worried. Symbiote? Symbiote. Simba. Symbiote. The Venom symbiote. So like a crazy personality. When you say a word over and over again,